the MCU could do a couple things better. Hey, what's up, nerd fam? It's your boy Goshan, and welcome to Into the Nerd. So obviously, we love comic books, we love comic book movies, we love anime, manga, all of that. And if you love it too, make sure you like the video and subscribe so you can get more content about all that stuff. So today we're going to be talking about the MCU and the things that I think they could do to make it better than what it is, and just consistent, keep going. Now, one thing I'll say about the MCU is that they, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you don't know what I'm talking about, not the Municipal Credit Union, that was a dad joke. Now, when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the one thing I really give it, you can't deny, is they have direction. They know where they want to go. They always knew that the first three phases were going to lead up to Thanos, and they did it. Even if you don't know the comics, you could watch the movies and go, okay, so this is clearly where they're trying to lead. They put all those little Easter eggs at the end of the film, during the film, you knew it was going to go there. And that's great. That's great where a universe knows where it's going to go. I guess you can credit that to Kevin Feige. There are some things though, because it's not perfect. I'm not an MCU stan. I'm not a person who's going to like just love the movies and go, oh, there's nothing wrong with... No, there are some things wrong. And I'll just call it out as it is. So, obviously, everybody loved the Iron Man films, 1 and 2. People had a problem with 3. The Thor movies, the first 2, everyone pretty much agrees those were pretty terrible. And then everybody loves Thor Ragnarok. But Thor Ragnarok, they had to put it in the same vein that it's like Guardians of the Galaxy for people to really dig it. The problem is that that movie was still, it didn't do Thor justice. Now, they brought in another character, Valkyrie, who's actually in there, which is cool, but then it's like, they haven't brought in key things to his lore, like Beta Ray Bill and stuff like that. And they showed like a Corbinite, or a Corbinite skeleton before, but it's like they didn't show him, right? And then they had Hulk help him out, so it became like a buddy film, but not really about Thor. And they had Hela, who's a really good character, but what they do with her. And there's other characters they haven't shown, like Enchantress and so forth and so. And then what happened to Sif? What happened to her? They talk about wanting to bring strong women, but then when you have them, what do? Like, you just let them fade off into obscurity. But I'll make a whole different video about Thor, right? The Ant-Man movies. First one was cool as an introduction. The second one kind of went, eh. And when you look at the Ant-Man movie, it kind of brings me to like another point that I have, which is even though that Scott Lang is Ant-Man, I don't understand why they didn't just go with Hank Pym. Why wasn't he? They just go with that first. Scott Lang could have came later, like just to create a legacy. But why didn't he just go with Hank Pym? Because I think there's a much more interesting story to tell, especially with how the part was changed, like his state of mind, and he became Yellow Jacket, and he wound up being abusive to Jan, which honestly, it's Disney not wanting to tell super heavy stuff sometimes. Yeah, they show like murder, right? And I get it, that's heavy, but sometimes like those like social things they don't want to show, and I feel like that would have been a great thing to show, like Hank Pym like going from here to here. Like that would have been kind of a cool thing to show, like just, all right, well, he's just the guy and he's the scientist, and then watch the Pym particles like turn him into a monster to his own life. Like that'd been cool to see, and then have to redeem himself from that. It's kind of like how in Iron Man they tried to do the whole like the demon in a bottle thing. They try to kind of like allude to that, but not really go full demon in a bottle. Like, I think Disney should, I know they're trying to like sell toys and make sure everybody's in Disneyland, but I think they should tell the heavier parts of the source material, because that will make these characters more endearing to people. Like when you get like to like the heavier, grittier stuff too. It doesn't even have to be rated R. It's just, real source material, right? Guardians of the Galaxy, entertaining films, absolutely, but the characters in the comic are just better. Like, they're just much more interesting than they are there. Like, do you believe in the films that Gamora is the deadliest woman in the galaxy? No, you don't. She needs so much help in those films, but in the actual comic, she is. Like, she's pretty damn strong. Like, she's like slapping around She-Hulk and stuff like that. Like, it's pretty crazy. Star-Lord is cool. Even Drax is not like just like some alien. Drax is, He has a very complicated story. I think I'll show you that later, but much cooler than what he is there. All right, but still entertaining film. So they don't suck. They do weird stuff with source material, just to go for like, let's just get the laughs. Let's just make it lighthearted. But sometimes you don't need that. Like, you don't need everything to be a joke every second, which is something that they like to rely on. Like, sometimes it can be serious with, like, just a little bit of humor, but mostly like just get to what the source material is. Like, do justice to the characters first, and then sprinkle a little bit of what you want on there. And I will say that for the most part, they are definitely much more source accurate than, let's just say, the DCEU. Like, and they craft better stories, but still, there are some things that can be tweaked. Like, my favorite film in the whole MCU is Captain America: Winter Soldier. I like all the Russo brothers films. Obviously, I think everyone likes those films the most, but Winter Soldier was great because obviously Captain America actually had a physical foil, an emotional foil, and the film didn't pretend to be something else. Like, it had its own story. It introduced Falcon, which, I mean, as much as I don't really like the MCU version, it was at least accurate in the fact that, Falcon does appear in a Captain America comic. It was pretty cool they did that. What I didn't like from the Russo brothers is that they used, when they did Civil War. Civil War is a storyline that encompasses the entire Marvel Universe. Yet they made it into a fist fight between friends having a minor disagreement. Like, it just totally demeaned that whole thing. Like, they didn't have to do that. Like, and it was supposed to be as a Captain America movie. That seemed like an Avengers movie. Why didn't they just use another Captain America, like U.S. Agent, which they're using in the Falcon and Winter Soldier show? But they could have done something like that for Captain America, like, what happened in those years when he was asleep, stuff like that. Like, they could have done something more interesting and more grounded to the characters to really build them up, instead of use a storyline that they didn't have the characters, because they didn't have the Fox license back. They didn't have all those characters back, so they couldn't do all that stuff. So why use a storyline that is meant to encompass so many more characters and then just give this dumbed down version to it? Like, I didn't like that. And obviously Infinity War and Endgame could be divisive because it was like totally spectacle, and some people thought they didn't have a lot of substance, and I get some of that criticism. I absolutely do. And it did a lot of things well, and some things, like the power scaling, was weird. Like, you see, like, what Thanos was able to do to Hulk, and then for some reason, like, Captain America can hold back his fingers. Like, stop. We know what happened in the comics. He literally died from getting punched through his shield, right? Like, little things like that. Like, and I know they had to nerf a lot of their powers, because if the Black Order and all that were as strong as they were in the comic compared to what they are in the MCU, I mean, everyone would just die. But, I get it. For the movies that you have to kind of nerf because they're like all godly, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just keep them what they are, and then it kind of evens out that way. Either way, Endgame was a nice little tie to it. It wasn't perfect, but at least you saw what they were trying to do. So I can give the MCU more credit than I can detract it. However, there's still movies like Captain Marvel, which did a lot of things that I was telling you about, like in the other videos, like, when it comes to like the gender bending, like making Marvel the one who she gets her powers from, a woman for no reason at all. Like, she wasn't even the same character. Like, they made it a woman, and then she didn't have the powers. Like, Captain Marvel got powers from a box and exploded, and it doesn't actually make any sense. Like, even for the movie, it doesn't make any sense. And like, oh yeah, we want to empower a woman, but then you make the first female Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, a little girl that looks up to Carol Danvers. So clearly, it's not all the women that you care about. Clearly, you don't care about all the women being empowered. This is another thing, which I see that happening, is like Marvel is like letting a lot of politics seep in. And not saying there haven't been politics inside of comics. I know that there have definitely been, but a lot of it is making them do a lot of lazy choices. Because Captain Marvel, even without the political stuff, wasn't a very good film. It had a slow start. It was boring, and let me tell you, like, building a strong woman character, everyone else around her doesn't have to be weak. Like, Wonder Woman did this very well. Like, everyone else was, weaker than her, by proxy. They weren't half God, but they still had their own unique strengths and stuff like that. And she was like, hey, you guys do that. I'm gonna do my thing. And it was great. She was an awesome character, and you cared about it, right? But the MCU's kind of weird when it comes to that stuff, and I wish they got better at that. The MCU also has a problem with breaking continuity. Like when it comes to like Age of Ultron, they had Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch there, even though they couldn't really use them for what they really were. And a year before that, Days of Future Past came out from Fox, which had Quicksilver, like actual Quicksilver, like Magneto's son, Quicksilver. And then they had whatever the hell this was from Sokovia in Age of Ultron. Why do that? Like, why bring a character that you can't really use? It's like kind of piggybacks off that Civil War problem, right? And then they have Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. I'm looking forward to the Shang-Chi movie, but they're supposed to be using the Mandarin in that. But which man? Are we talking about Iron Man Mandarin? Like, which Mandarin? Like, what are we saying? Because they've already kind of messed up what the Mandarin was. So I'm confused with that. I want to see what happens with the Eternals. I'm interested to see where that leads to, what other lore, right? And I definitely want to see a Multiverse of Madness, because they say that's going to be like kind of House of M stuff, and it'll perhaps help to usher in the X-Men. And this is why I say I have a lot of confidence when it comes to them having a direction. I just don't know. I just don't like what they do sometimes with the source material, and sometimes they take liberties with it. But overall, like, you enjoy the universe, you enjoy the films, and you know where they're going. And I'm hearing Kang the Conqueror is coming now, which is weird to me because they cast Jonathan Majors as that, and he's technically Nathaniel Richards, technically related to Reed Richards. So now we're saying that once again the Fantastic Four is about to be black again. You see, like that race swapping thing, it sounds like they're about to go and do that again. So yeah, like that's another thing the MCU does. Like they take a very lazy approach. They do it in their comics too. Like there's some things that are just very lazy, but now it's becoming prevalent. It's happening in the Eternals too, but it is what it is. Well, it's again more positive than negative, but there's still tons of negative that's there in terms of source material, in terms of them not just giving original characters a real shine, and them taking a lazy approach, and them honestly just being like, you know, enjoyable for, you know, making it very, very funny, but not necessarily making the characters. They don't put the characters first all the time. Like they did a good job of giving them their own movies, but they don't always really keep their integrity. They just kind of like, they'd rather go for the laugh than make you really think. You know what I mean? They're scared to make people think and really feel something deep. And I wish Disney would change that about themselves. But yeah, let me know if you think, hey, you know, I love these films, I know what you're talking about, or yeah, a little more seriousness would help, and a little bit more, you know, stop taking too many liberties with the source material, right? And a little bit more creativity, right? That's really what I want to see from the MCU going forward. But mostly, I still like the fact that they have a direction and they know what they're doing years ahead of time. All right, so until then, keep reading comic books, keep loving Marvel, and remember to enter the nerd.